Salvage, a story by user Rantarian. Chapter 17, Warp. Zoddersill, 2 weeks ago. I will need to monitor power flow from the source, Beckmer told the human. It may not be sufficient to shut down power in the Zoddersill's internal systems if things go awry. He was not pleased with the fact that he had been taken advantage of, and now it was time for turnabout. The human had posited the concept of using other vessels' FTL drives to reinforce the main bubble. A lengthy consideration had determined that that would be in no way suitable, but that it could potentially allow the assisting vessel to carry on while all else would be subjected to the normal consequences of a collapsing warp field. I'm not a fucking idiot, the human said. You just want to get into a spaceship while I'm busy somewhere else. What I want is to survive, Beckmer replied, injecting as much acid into his words as he could manage. You'll need to be in the other vessel. How can I possibly escape when you'll be right there? And the navigation and FTL systems? The human asked. Beckmer sniffed. Those may now be accessed and activated remotely. Which era do you think we're living in? The human was silent for a time, no doubt trying to bump enough neurons together to formulate some kind of response. If that's the case, then let's do it. But if you're fucking around... You'll kill me or torture me or starve me, Beckmer interrupted. Yes, I've got all the standard threats memorized. The human stared at him hatefully, but Beckmer knew by now that he had already won. Then let's do it right now. As you wish, Beckmer replied tersely, although he was smiling on the inside. Soon, very soon, he would be free, and the human would almost certainly be dead. The human opened the heavy door to the cell, standing nearby as it always did while Beckmer exited. The human normally followed him closely in case he tried anything suspicious, but today that would be impossible. The human would need to trust Beckmer enough to let him onto one of the hunter ships, and once Beckmer was that far ahead, he could manage the rest as the situation progressed. Stay in contact, the human told him, handing him a communicator, and Beckmer took it disdainfully. You'll need a vacuum suit to get to the hunter vessels, the human explained as they reached the outer airlock closest to the damaged hull. I didn't manage to set up any kind of protective field to hold in the atmosphere around there yet, so it's just the ships themselves with air. Understood, Beckmer replied, carefully putting on his own suit. He was almost there, almost free, and it wouldn't pay to go getting excited. A few more minutes and he'd have won his freedom and his revenge. That he would not be able to claim the Zoddersill after all was his only regret, but sacrifices had to be made. They stepped through the airlock, and Beckmer froze as he took in the scene. The hunter vessels were not drifting in the wreckage anymore, but appeared to have been welded to the Zoddersill. What that would mean for his plan, he wasn't sure, but he was desperate and would make the gamble anyway. All right, he said over the communicator once he was at the console. Everything looks good here, human. I'm ready to activate power flow on your signal. Understood, came the reply. Activate now. Activating, Beckmer said, switching the power lines to active. There was a hum as power transferred to the larger vessel, and the power flow readouts looked good. FTL system has power, the human said triumphantly. The sound of the human's taste of victory was like a warm glow to Beckmer, who knew how quickly it would transform into horror and death. The human continued reading out the status of the plan, and Beckmer listened intently for his cue. Navigation locked to Dominion space. FTL engaged. There was a sense of pressure as the ancient FTL fired up, a bubble of altered space-time forming around the enormous ship and everything it contained. There was the normal sense of energy that always accompanied the formation of that bubble, and then the initial tingling on the surface of Beckmer's skin as the ship began to slip through space at a faster-than-light rate. Now, he thought, doubling the power flow to the Zoddersill, and the conduits exploded almost immediately, burning like lines of plasma in the void. Beckmer smiled at the human's cry of alarm, and turned the ship's power fully over to its own FTL. It was make-or-break time. Enjoy disintegration, human! Beckmer shot across the communicator as the larger field broke apart and his ship tore itself away from the Zoddersill. It was working! It was all working! He laughed as the human cursed him over the communicator. And then the human was gone. The Zoddersill was gone. Beckmer was free. Finally! He said, relishing the sensation of victory. Then there was an explosion inside the ship, and all the lights went out. Adrian was white-knuckling the console. The fact that the FTL drive on the ships had been booby-trapped to destroy the reactors was of little comfort when the Zoddersill was screaming through space in a disintegrating warp bubble. He didn't know the first thing about how to fix the situation. He did know that he couldn't pour any more power into the Zoddersill's FTL without burning out the power conduits like Beckmer had intentionally done, and he knew he couldn't use this ship's own FTL without detonating the reactor. "Fuck!" he shouted at the console. "Fucking fuck!" He brutally pounded it with his fist, almost as though that would help in some way. Then he kept hitting it when it didn't. "Shiplord Adrian Saunders," the Zoddersill computer system said, interrupting his outburst. "Warp field integrity at 30%. Emergency stop advised. Go ahead." "Emergency stop?" Adrian repeated. "Fuck yes, go ahead, go ahead!" "Insufficient power for emergency stop," the computer immediately replied. "Power supply at 70% of requirements." 70%? Adrian repeated. He looked at the smashed console beneath his fist and found another one to work on. "Fuck me dead, I hope this works." He turned up the power supply to the Zoddersill. Conduits outside began to spark brightly into the airless void. "Zoddersill," he ordered. "Engage emergency stop." "Emergency stop engaged," the computer repeated. "Warp field integrity maximized. Warp field now under controlled shutdown." The stars returned as the warp field fell away, and Adrian breathed a heavy sigh of relief. "Still fucking kicking," he said. "Still fucking kicking!" It had been too close that time. He'd have died if it wasn't for the Zoddersill's own systems intervening at the last moment. Beckmer had almost succeeded in royally fucking him over. But wherever Beckmer was now, he either had his own problems or was beyond them. Fuck that guy. He ran a navigational scan to find out where he was, and hissed out air through clenched teeth. The Zoddersill wasn't in uncontrolled space around Afrag anymore. Now it was beyond any system, out in the darkness of deep space, out on the edge of the Dominion-Kelsey conflict. "Well that," he said grimly, "is just completely fucking wonderful." Zoddersill, present day. "Food's running low," Adrian told Jennifer over breakfast. "Or at least low enough to make me concerned. I'm going to take a run to Afrag. Get some meat, some eggs, some fruit and veg." "Can I come along?" she asked. "I want to help, and I'm getting tired of reading the help interface." "Not this time," Adrian replied. "You're not inoculated against everything yet, so you might pick up some disease you won't be able to shake. Plus, I only have the one hunting rifle." She seemed deflated, and he thought quickly about what he could get her to do so she didn't get depressed. She was getting better, albeit slowly, with human contact, but he had to make sure she always had something to do. "Tell you what," he said, and noted the way she perked up immediately. "It's been a while since I've had time to do any cleaning at all. There's a literal bucket of poo in the brig. Can I get you to do some washing up while I go get our food?" "You want me to play housewife?" she asked. "I don't know whether I should be insulted or not. Is Australia so backwards that you think just because I'm a woman I can do the dishes? Maybe I have magical sweeping powers given to me by the fair folk." "It's not about you being a woman," he explained quickly. "It's about work that needs doing. It's work that needs doing, and I'm still dealing with a whole lot of problems from the last incident I had. That's why I was looking out for abandoned ships to strip. I need replacement parts." "What for?" she asked. "Everything seems to be working from what I can see. Not that I know everything about the Dyna ship, you'll understand, but the lights are on, and we've got air." "Well, the ship can't move," Adrian said flatly. "The method I was using to give it power isn't going to work again without serious outdoor repairs. If you prefer the idea of rebuilding a power grid and half vacuum over washing up, be my guest. You have no idea the work I put in getting it working the first time. And frankly, I don't want to give much thought to how much work it's going to be this time around." "What's the rush?" Jen asked, innocently enough, but with a slight hint of worry in the voice. "From what I can tell, we're fine for the time being, aren't we?" "We're in a war zone." Deciding to finally fill her in on the situation since there was no helping it anymore. "Not near the main action, as far as I can tell, but close enough that I'd prefer to get out of it sooner rather than later. I may be awesome, Jen, but I don't think I can fight an actual army." "Don't think that the Ripley plan would work again?" she asked. "Flush them all into space?" "Not this time," he said gravely. "One of the guys we used to have here was a mercenary who did ship-to-ship boardings. They go in wearing vacuum suits just in case. They probably also leave their main ship outside. The Zoddersill has a big gun that it tells me works, but again, I'd need to get it powered. So yeah, the faster I get things done, the better, and that means all the little tasks fall to you. I'm sorry if that makes you feel bad, but I need to be able to have you pick up the slack for all the small things that I won't have time to do. Can I trust you to do that for me, Jen?" She was quiet for a moment, taking in the full context of what he'd said and weighing it up. She took a breath, the deep kind you take when you've made a decision, and nodded. "You can trust me to do that." Avtal's command carrier, 1 week ago. Cheer looked at the report again as he waited for the multi-link to connect. A field of debris had hit the Cardidal system, exploding out of a disintegrating warp field and causing quite the stir. Scanners had determined that the debris had come from a hunter vessel, but the only genetic markers in the debris had belonged to a single Kortai. A mystery, unless you happened to be aboard the Zoddersill and knew its position was close enough to Cardidal to make a coincidence very unlikely. The link finally activated, displaying the familiar faces of Tricror and Zrypob. Both were serious, as though they'd been expecting the call. "It's been a while, Tricror," Zrypob said, greeting her. He had maintained brief amounts of contact with Chur, but he had been busy with the mercenary group. Things had been going about as well for Zrypob as they had for the other two of them.
"This is about the hunter ship?"
Tricror asked, after nodding her own greeting.
"I saw it on the news. Do you think it came from the Zoddersill?"
"The debris had no hunter genetic markers," Chir said. "A single Kortai. Draw your own conclusions. But to me it sounds like Beckmer had an accident." "That doesn't make me unhappy," Zrypob said, "although I would have liked being involved in that outcome."
"So would I,"
Tricror said coldly.
"I am more interested in the fate of the Zoddersill."
"That's why I've contacted you both," Chir said. "The Dominion have traced the warp path back to Afrag. Starting yesterday, they began an intensive sweep of the system." The other two were obviously shocked. "There's no way the Zoddersill could remain hidden," Zrypob replied. "They'll already be boarding it. The poor bastards." "That's just the thing," Chir said. "The scans have come back clean all around that position. The Zoddersill wasn't there." He let that news sink in for a moment, watching their expressions change as they thought about how to take this news. No Zoddersill in high orbit around Afrag was either very good or very bad news. "So what became of Adrian Saunders?" Zrypob wondered, voicing the thought for all of them. "That's what I'm going to go and find out," Chir told them. "Is anybody else in?"
"I'm in,"
Tricror said too quickly, then paused before continuing.
"I'm getting tired of speaking with psychoanalysts and not building any weapons."
"I'd be in too," Zrypob said, "but my unit is being dispatched to some other planet, and I'm expected to lead the charge. If you find Adrian, say hello from me."
"Well then," Chir said, talking directly to Tricror now. "Looks like it's just you and me." Alright guys, that is going to do it for me today. Just to speak further on some of the stuff I was talking about at the end of yesterday's video, I am looking at setting up a green screen. There's, excuse me, I know there's kits on Amazon for like $130, $140 that come with lights, a stand, some clips, the green screen itself, all that fun stuff. I don't know. I gotta look into getting maybe a Adobe Premiere or some other things, because Shotcut I don't think is gonna really cut it with the whole chroma key thing and everything like that. And yeah, it's gonna be some work. It's gonna be an adjustment, but I'm looking at all sorts of fun stuff. I'm looking at some props and some costumes and things like that. So we will see what we see here in the future. I don't want to hype it too much, but I think some things are going to come together. So thank you again, guys, as always, for being here with me and spending this time with me today. Hi, Lincoln. Hi, Bob. What do you want? You're like right up in my face right now. How are you? Yes. Yes. Yes, you're a beautiful boy. Do you want to say hello to the people? Say hello to the people. Sniff it. Just be a weirdo. Sniff it. Come here. Come on. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like the microphone. It's big and weird, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. I'm sorry, puppy. That's enough. I'll put it away. Be a good dog. Sorry, everybody. Anywhoozits. What was I saying? I was saying, yeah, thank you guys so much for being here with me today. As always, it is wonderful that you would spend this time with me. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.